In November 2020, something started happening on Reddit's Our Dreams community that still makes sleep researchers squirm in their lab chairs. People who'd never met, never even crossed paths online, started posting about the same dream. Not similar dreams, the same dream. Standing in these vast, empty white spaces, watching doors crack open, and behind those doors, themselves. But wrong, distorted, like looking at your reflection in a funhouse mirror, except the reflection is staring back with knowledge you don't have. And here's what made it impossible to dismiss. They were all having these dreams within the same week. Now, before we go further, what follows isn't proof. It's a pattern science hasn't fully explained yet, but it's a pattern that keeps showing up in ways that are harder and harder to ignore. You might think pandemic stress, right? Everyone locked down, anxiety through the roof, brains just misfiring in similar ways. But Harvard researcher Dr. Deirdre Barrett was documenting something she called lockdown dreams, a legitimate phenomenon where isolated populations were reporting eerily similar dream content. What happened on Reddit, though? That went beyond similar themes. We're talking extraordinarily specific similarities. The same white walls, the same sense of dread pooling in your stomach, the same out-of-body feeling of watching yourself from across the room. It wasn't just Reddit insomniacs either. TikTok lit up with hashtag shared dreams videos, tens of millions of views by December. A teacher in Stockholm posted about her dream, then some coder in Mumbai described the exact same scenario, down to the specific type of door handle. A nurse in Cape Town reported the identical experience, same week, same details. These are people living in different hemispheres, speaking different languages, scrolling completely different corners of the internet. They have zero reason to coordinate this. Dr. Patrick McNamara, neuroscientist at Boston University, who spent decades studying dreams, admitted something in Psychology Today that scientists rarely say out loud. He called the volume of reports statistically uncomfortable, his exact words. When a researcher uses the term uncomfortable, you know the data is breaking their models. When you have clusters of independent reports describing not just similar themes, but nearly identical sequences and emotional responses, all occurring in close temporal proximity, you're looking at something that challenges our fundamental understanding of consciousness. And here's the thing that'll keep you up tonight. This isn't new. Back in 1954, researchers at the Ryan Research Center in Durham, North Carolina, the paranormal research people, documented what they called collective dream episodes. Strangers in their studies reporting matching dream narratives with no prior contact. The archives exist. You can request them. The interpretation is what's debated, but the documentation? It's sitting there in filing cabinets, ignored for 70 years because nobody wanted to touch the implications. Fast forward to now, we've got timestamps, IP addresses, the ability to verify this stuff in real time across the globe. Reddit communities like R Glitch in the Matrix and R Dreams became digital archives for thousands of these reports. Twitter threads hit tens of thousands of entries. People weren't describing vague dream themes anymore. They were documenting parallel experiences, identical locations they'd never visited, word-for-word conversations with people they'd never met, events unfolding in perfectly matching sequences. So here's the question nobody's asking out loud. If the walls of your mind aren't as thick as you thought, who else has the keys to your head? Because what happened in November 2020 wasn't a coincidence. It was a breach. In 1913, Carl Jung, one of the founding fathers of psychology, started having dreams so violent, so apocalyptic, that he genuinely believed he was losing his mind. He dreamed of Europe drowning in blood, civilizations collapsing, death consuming entire nations. Night after night, the same horrific visions. He confided in colleagues that he thought he was experiencing a psychotic break. And then August 1914 hit. World War I erupted across Europe, and Jung watched his nightmares play out on newspaper headlines. The blood, the collapse, the death. He realized something that would change psychology forever. His dreams hadn't been madness, they'd been a preview. This experience, this impossible precognition, led Jung to propose something that got him laughed out of academic circles at the time. He called it the collective unconscious. The idea that beneath our individual minds there exists a shared reservoir of human experience and imagery, invisible threads connecting every consciousness on Earth through ancestral memory and universal symbols, a mental internet that existed long before the digital one. Most scientists dismissed him as a mystic, but here's what's wild. Modern neuroscience is starting to prove Jung right. Research teams across multiple institutions have been using advanced fMRI technology to map brain activity during REM sleep, and they're finding something that shouldn't be possible. When people dream, their brains show remarkably consistent activation patterns across individuals. Not just similar themes, similar neural signatures. People who've never met from completely different cultures showing measurable similarities in brain activity during certain dream states, like their minds are tuning in to the same frequency. If our brains are hardwired to access these patterns, the question becomes, are we just accessing our own neural networks, or are we tapping into something bigger? Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, controversial Cambridge biologist who's been academic public enemy #1 for decades, has been proposing exactly that through his theory of morphic resonance. The idea that there's an invisible field of collective memory that all living things can access. Mainstream science has tried to bury his work for years. While heavily debated, his ideas refuse to disappear from scientific discussion. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Recent quantum physics research into non-local consciousness is asking the same questions Sheldrake's been asking since the 1980s. In 2018, physicist Dr. Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences in California published something that made the scientific establishment very uncomfortable. Experimental results showing statistically significant correlations between the brain activity of people attempting to share information through dreams, even when they were separated by thousands of miles. The success rates defied chance probability by margins that are hard to explain away. But the most compelling evidence? It comes from experiments that happened before most of us were born. Between 1964 and 1972, researchers at the Maimonides Medical Center in Brooklyn, led by psychiatrists Montague Ullman and Stanley Krippner, conducted what is still considered one of the most rigorous scientific studies of dream telepathy ever attempted. For nearly a decade, they had receivers sleeping in electromagnetically shielded rooms while senders in separate rooms focused on specific images. The receivers, still asleep in REM, would describe what the senders were looking at with accuracy that challenged conventional explanations. The studies were published in peer-reviewed journals, and the book Dream Telepathy by Ullman and Krippner compiled the results. The findings were statistically significant enough to spark debates that continue to this day. And here's what'll really mess with your head. Indigenous cultures never needed these experiments. The Aboriginal Australians have practiced dream sharing for over 40,000 years. The Sonoy people of Malaysia have entire cultural frameworks built around communal dreaming, whole villages navigating shared dream landscapes together like it's the most natural thing in the world. If ancient wisdom and cutting-edge neuroscience are both pointing at the same truth, we have to ask, is this connection a natural part of consciousness we've forgotten? Or is something or someone plugging us in? In the spring of 2011, something impossible started happening across Japan. People began reporting the same recurring nightmare: massive walls of water, ground shaking so violently you couldn't stand, cities being swallowed by the ocean. Week after week, the same dream spreading through the population. Then March 11, 2011 happened. The Tohoku earthquake, magnitude 9.1, triggered a tsunami that killed nearly 16,000 people and caused the Fukushima nuclear disaster. And when researchers at Tokyo University's Department of Psychology started collecting data in the aftermath, they documented hundreds of reports collected after the event, and critically, some that had been recorded beforehand, posted on forums, mentioned to therapists, written in dream journals with timestamps. Were these dreams precognitive, or is something even stranger happening? Are our minds accessing information that exists outside linear time? Dr. Eben Alexander, Harvard-trained neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience that turned him from skeptic to believer, proposed something radical that's gaining traction in unexpected places. He says consciousness isn't generated by the brain, it's received by it, like a radio tuning into a broadcast signal. The brain acts as a reducing valve, he explained to Scientific American in 2021. It filters down an infinite field of consciousness into the narrow stream we experience as individual awareness. During REM sleep, when those filtering mechanisms relax, we might be accessing a universal information field, what quantum physicists call the zero-point field. Hold on, let's break that down. If consciousness isn't created by your brain but received by it, that means your mind isn't isolated. It's an access point, a terminal logging into a network that's always been there. This isn't just spiritual speculation anymore. Dr. Paula Zizi, actual CERN physicist working on quantum consciousness, has published papers suggesting that quantum entanglement could theoretically extend to biological neural networks, and research at UC Santa Barbara has explored whether quantum coherence might be possible in the microtubules inside our neurons, a controversial but actively researched hypothesis. If human brains can achieve quantum coherence during sleep states, then non-local consciousness stops being mysticism and starts being physics. Dreams might not be generated individually at all. They could be downloads from a collective information matrix that exists outside space and time. The documentation keeps piling up. The subreddit r/precognition has over 100,000 members now, all meticulously cataloging dreams that seemed to forecast future events. The patterns are impossible to ignore. Clusters of similar dreams often precede major global events, natural disasters, cultural shifts. Before the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, there was a documented spike in ocean-related nightmares across Southeast Asia. Before the 2010 Chilean earthquake, dream reports about ground collapse and buildings falling jumped significantly in the region. Dr. Gary Schwartz at the University of Arizona's Laboratory for Advances in Consciousness and Health calls it consciousness field interaction, the hypothesis that individual minds aren't isolated processors, they're nodes in a network, and during sleep, when our conscious filters drop, we access collective information streams. The evidence is mounting from neuroscience, quantum physics, documented human experience, and cultures that never forgot this was possible. But here's what nobody can explain. If shared dreams are real, if we're all tapping into the same source, why is it accelerating? Why are the reports becoming more frequent, more undeniable, more urgent? What changed? And what's coming next? By 2021, something shifted in the scientific community, and it wasn't subtle. Dr. Michelle Carr, respected dream researcher at the University of Montreal who'd spent years being the professional skeptic in the room, published a paper in Frontiers in Psychology that basically amounted to a public reversal. After her team analyzed dream reports using blind protocols where people logged their dreams before seeing what others posted, they found correlations that shouldn't exist. The data forced us to reconsider, she told New Scientist in 2022. We were finding matches in dream content among people with no connection, minimal media exposure, and seemingly no way to coordinate. Let that sit for a second. No easy explanation, no contamination vector that fits, just matching dreams happening across populations that have zero contact with each other. What really made the establishment pay attention was the predictive clusters. Researchers at the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, founded in 1967 by psychiatrist Dr. Ian Stevenson, now run by near-death experience expert Dr. Bruce Grayson, have been quietly maintaining databases of precognitive reports for decades. And when they ran the analysis, before major global events, there's a statistically significant spike in dreams containing related imagery and symbols. This pattern showed up before the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, before the 2010 Chilean earthquake, multiple documented instances that are hard to hand-wave away. It's not just disasters either. Dr. Chris French at Goldsmiths, University of London, published a study back in 2001 examining shared dreams during periods of collective cultural focus, World Cup finals, royal weddings, major elections. The results showed elevated rates of thematically similar dreams during these events, like collective attention or emotion might somehow bleed into the dream space. By 2022, even the heavyweights couldn't keep pretending nothing was happening. Dr. Christoph Koch, former president of the Allen Institute for Brain Science, one of the world's leading consciousness researchers, published an editorial that stopped just short of full endorsement, but acknowledged something significant. Consciousness remains the greatest mystery in science, he wrote, and phenomena like shared dream experiences, while difficult to study rigorously, may be pointing us towards aspects of consciousness that our current materialist framework cannot adequately explain. Translation: our textbook model of how minds work, it's like trying to explain a smartphone using steam engine physics. The models don't fit the data anymore. The breaking point came when institutions started pooling their data. The Rhine Research Center, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, the Division of Perceptual Studies at UVA, independent researchers worldwide, all collaborating through the International Association for the Study of Dreams. Their combined databases revealed something nobody saw coming. Dreams weren't random. They clustered around specific time windows. They correlated with geomagnetic activity, with lunar cycles, with periods of intense collective emotion. The scientific establishment fractured down the middle, one camp desperately clinging to conventional explanations, the other staring at data that refused to fit into the boxes they'd built. But here's what nobody was asking, the question that kept people staring at their ceiling at 3 a.m. If our dreams are connected, if we're all accessing something beyond individual minds, what does that mean for everything we believe about reality, about privacy, about the fundamental separation between self and other? Because once you realize the walls might be illusion, you can't unsee it. In 2023, the conversation stopped being about whether and started being about what it means. Dr. Donald Hoffman, cognitive scientist at UC Irvine, whose interface theory of perception has been quietly revolutionizing consciousness research, offered the most comprehensive framework yet for what's actually happening. His work suggests that physical reality as we perceive it isn't fundamental. It's an interface, a simplified user experience that consciousness uses to navigate something far more complex underneath. Think of it like this. When you look at desktop icons on your computer, you're not seeing the actual code, the electrical signals, the complex processes running in the background. You're seeing a simplified interface that lets you interact with the system. Hoffman proposes that physical reality, space, time, objects, even our bodies, might be the same thing, an interface masking a deeper reality. And dreams? They might be moments when that interface becomes transparent, when we glimpse the interconnected nature of consciousness that the physical world normally hides from us. This isn't just philosophical speculation. It aligns perfectly with what quantum physics has been telling us for a century, that separation at the fundamental level might be an illusion. If particles can remain entangled across any distance, instantaneously affecting each other regardless of space and time, why would consciousness be any different? Especially if consciousness is more fundamental than matter, which is what the evidence increasingly suggests. The practical implications have already started reshaping research. Major universities, Johns Hopkins, Imperial College London, UC Berkeley, have established well-funded programs studying collective consciousness, shared experiences, non-local awareness. The International Association for the Study of Dreams, founded back in 1983, has seen its membership triple since 2020. Neuroscientists, physicists, psychologists, philosophers, all converging on questions that were considered fringe just 5 years ago. The documentation continues to grow exponentially. Online platforms tracking shared dream experiences now host millions of reports from every corner of the globe. And while skeptics rightfully point out verification challenges and the role of suggestion, the sheer volume and consistency, particularly from people who document before exposure to others' accounts, suggests something genuine is happening that deserves rigorous scientific attention rather than knee-jerk dismissal. But maybe the most profound impact isn't scientific, it's personal. Recognizing that our minds might be part of a larger interconnected field has real implications for how we relate to each other. The person whose November 2020 post helped spark the viral awareness wrote in a 2023 follow-up, "Understanding that we might all be connected at some level changed everything for me. How I see strangers, how I treat people, how I move through the world. If we're all nodes in the same consciousness experiencing itself from different perspectives, then kindness to others isn't just morally right, it's literally kindness to ourselves." The scientific jury is still out on the exact mechanics, whether it's quantum entanglement, morphic resonance fields, Jungian archetypes, or something we don't have language for yet. But the evidence that something profound is happening, that human consciousness extends beyond the boundaries we've assumed for centuries, that evidence just keeps accumulating. We don't have all the answers yet, maybe we never will, but we can't pretend the questions don't exist anymore. The dreams we share in the darkness are whispering a truth we're only beginning to hear. We are far more connected than we ever imagined. Reality is far stranger and more wondrous than the limited interface we navigate each day. The veil is lifting, and we're finally learning to see. And if these questions keep you up at night the way they keep us up, if you want to keep exploring the edges of reality where science meets the unexplained, subscribe to Dark Dimensions X and hit that bell, because the deeper we dig into consciousness, the stranger it gets, and you're going to want to be here when we uncover what comes next.